Hi and welcome to another Scratch lesson. Today we're going to be doing some pattern making. Now it's easy to these days to get obsessed with things like phones and games and stuff like that. And actually today is all about just a little bit of mindfulness, about creating something that looks nice, that appeals to the eye, and have a little bit of fun with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a program that draws random patterns or a game that you can kind of choose settings yourself that will create lots of different patterns depending on the settings that you put in. You can create a couple of different versions today. So let's get started straight away. Okay, so I've signed into Scratch, which is really useful if I want to save my work at the end and share it with me as part of one of the lessons. If you're just working on your own, you can just create a project but not save it. But I've signed in. You can see at the top I've got my username here. Just to double check that it's signed in fully, I'm going to hit refresh. And yeah, it's still got the name at the top there, so we're all good. Okay. So I'm going to go to create. There's no starter project for this one today. You're going to create everything, pardon the pun, from scratch, or from the very beginning. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give this project a name. I'm going to call it Pattern Maker. So a little bit like I spoke to you in one of the previous lessons, I prefer to use this kind of format called camel case, where you have your words where you've got lowercase and you use a capital letter for the start of new words. It doesn't really matter, particularly with the names of files. Quite often it doesn't matter if they've got spaces in. It's really handy just to get in the habit of being able to create file names and stuff like that make sense for cases where actually you're not allowed spaces. So I've given it a name. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing I need to do is when you start Scratch, the pen tool is not set up by default. You have to add it in. So I'm going to go down to this bottom left-hand corner here. There's a blue square. I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to activate this second one here that says pen. So that just activates the pen tool and gives me some blocks here that are useful for drawing lines and filling colors and stuff like that. Now, today we are going to use the Scratch sprite, but we're not actually going to see him. Now, when we draw the patterns, we don't want, or in the game that I'm showing you, we don't want the actual cat moving around the screen. So all we're going to do, we do need a sprite because it does need to move, but we're just going to hide the cat whenever the game starts. So let's start the game. Hit events, and the game starts when the green flag is clicked. This is like a lot of the programs that we do. The green flag starts the game. And the first thing that happens is I want the sprite to start in the middle of the screen. So I'm going to go to the motion blocks, and then I'm going to go to 0, 0. So if you haven't moved the cat about, it should automatically have 0, 0 in there. But if it's anything different, just change it to be 0, 0. Now, in computing, remember, 0 is the middle of the screen for X and Y coordinates. If you're going to the left of the screen, the number gets smaller for the X, and to the right, it gets bigger. So you get negative numbers in the center going towards the left, and positive number going to the right. And the same up and down with the Y coordinates. Y positive is up, Y negative is down below the middle of the screen. So that puts him dead center. Now, we said a second ago, we want to make sure that the cat hides. We don't want the cat moving around the screen. So I'm going to change his looks to be hide at this point. So we know when we hit the green flag, the cat will always hide at the start of the program. What I also want to do is I want to make sure that the pen starts drawing from the very start as well. So I'm going to do a pen down at this point. So the pen goes down on the paper, and we'll start drawing a line. And the other thing I can do is I can set the color before the pen goes down to something that I want. I'm just going to leave it this kind of red color for now. You can pick whatever color. We're going to do some effects on those colors later, so I wouldn't worry too much about picking your favorite color right now. So let's just test some of that that works. What we need to do is make the cat just do a couple of very simple moves just to test that that works. So I'm going to go to motion. I'm going to move the cat and I'm going to move him 50 steps. And then I'm going to turn him a little bit, maybe 15 degrees is fine if it's on that already. And then I'm going to move him again. So I'm just going to put move 50 again. So that should make him go move 50, turn a bit, and go 50 again. But because we've put the pen bit down, it should draw the lines while he does it. So let's have a look. Hit the green flag. And you can see there, he moved forward 50, turned a bit, and then moved another 50 forward. So we know the pen works, and we know he's hidden as well. And we know even though he's hidden, that line still draws, which is perfect. Now, what I need to do, if I hit the green flag again, you'll see that it gradually carries on drawing those lines. So at the beginning, he goes back to the center. You can see the line heading back to the center and then moving again. So what we need to do, whenever we hit the green flag, we want to start with a clean page. So I need to add one more thing after the green flag is clicked. I'm going to do erase all as the very first thing. So what that means is I hit the green flag, you can see, oh, I'll do it actually, I'm going to put it after the go to 0, 0. So make sure it goes to the middle of the screen, erases everything, because otherwise we'll get this line going back from wherever we finished in the previous one. So hit the green flag now, you'll see it's just the new lines that show. Okay, so we've got it making some moves, we've got it drawing, we've got doing some bits. Now what we want to do is we want to make some patterns, and we're going to use repeats to do this. Now we could use forever, however, forever will just carry on and on and on and on and on and on and never stop. What we want to do is we want to create some patterns that keep on going until the sprite, the cat, even though it doesn't show, gets to the edge of the screen. So once he kind of moves out and creates the pattern, hits the edge of the screen, stops, and actually at that point we can either just stop or we can set something new and actually start a new pattern. So it gives us kind of a choice. So these blue move blocks that we put in just to test it a moment ago, I'm going to move to one side, so we're going to use some of them in a moment. And where they were, I'm now going to put a repeat until block. That's repeat until. So if you remember a second ago, I was saying that we're going to repeat until we get to the edge of the screen. So we're not going to repeat a certain amount of times. We're going to repeat until we hit the screen. So let's put that until bit in as well. So touching the side of the screen, touching is a sense. So we're going to get the touching one. And it doesn't matter that it says touching mouse pointer, because you've got that little white arrow that tells us that we can change it. And if I click on that, one of the options is to say edge. So I can say, if I detect I'm touching the edge of the screen, then I stop kind of doing the bit that's in here. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get rid of that third blue one because we don't need it, and I'm going to move these two inside now, inside this repeat until. So what that does now, so we've got everything setting up at the start. So we go to the middle of the screen, we erase all the pen, we hide the cat just in case the cat was showing, we set the pen color to a particular color, the pen goes down on a paper, and then we carry on doing these movements until we get to the edge of the screen. So let's have a look how that looks. If I hit the green flag, you can see he goes up in this arc, touches the edge of the screen, and then stops, which is absolutely fine. And we've got a pattern. It's not a particularly exciting one, but we've got a pattern that we can use. So let's just adjust some of these numbers so that we can see what's going on. So if I change these move steps to 5, so it's moving less each time, you can see I start drawing a circle. Well, it's not if this was really zoomed in, it wouldn't be an actual circle. It's just got lots of sides. So it's a polygon that's got lots and lots of sides, but zoomed out, it makes it look more and more like a circle. If I wanted to maybe turn more degrees, you could change that. So maybe I want to change it to be 76 degrees. I don't know. So if I hit the green flag now, you can see it makes it smaller because it's doing fewer turns to get back to the beginning again. But if I make that, say, 20 steps, you should see that we start getting some patterns. If I make that 40, you can see those patterns coming in. But you can see as well, though, that we're not actually ever stopping. The program just carries on until we end up getting this full circle, which doesn't really work particularly well. Let's make this a bit bigger again so you can really see it. So if we go to 50, you can see those patterns gradually building up, and it's really pretty while it happens, but we end up just basically with a thick circle. So let's have a little play and see if we can do something about that. We're going to do a couple of bits in here now to A, stop the code from just creating a circle like we've got there, but also to give you some choices when we're doing these, because I don't want to have to keep going in and changing this each time. I want to be able to kind of easily do it somehow. So let's start off by creating a variable. So we're going to have a variable for the number of steps he moves, but also we're going to have a variable for the number of degrees it turns as well. So let's make those two variables now. So I'm going to make a variable for steps. I'm going to leave it for all sprites. There's not much going on in this game, so actually either one would be fine. But just for ease, I'm going to put just hit OK and do it for all sprites. Then I'm going to create my second one here, which is degrees. So I've got a variable now that will hold the number of steps that I want to do each time, and a variable that will hold the number of degrees I want to turn each time. Let's start with just doing the steps in here. And one of the things that we can do is we can change these as it goes through. So if I bring a change, now because degrees was the last one I added, well, so the first one I added, that's the one that's top of the list. I'm going to change this to steps. I'm going to change, so it's moving a number of steps, and then I'm going to change the number of steps each time. So each time it turns, it's going to move a bit of a distance. So it's going to change this pattern. If I hit the green button, you can see that it's actually creating this lovely pattern right here, which is great. Okay, but you can see that this isn't working at the moment because my steps are starting on what they finished last time. So we need to make sure that when we hit the green flag, one of those things that happens is that we set, so I'll just do it before the loop starts, we're going to set the number of steps to 0 or a number. So we're going to start with 0 for now. So let's have a look at what that does, which is the one that we just saw a second ago. It's great. But let's change the amount of steps it changes by each time to 2. So this is going to double it. If I hit the green flag, you can see that pattern is much wider now. So it's great. If I change this maybe with the number of degrees, we should get a different pattern again. And if I change it to 110 maybe, so it's a bigger number, you can see that we get a different pattern again. So already we've got a way of creating different patterns. But what we said earlier on is that we wanted to make sure that you can create patterns, but you can choose how that looks. So let's ask the person who's running this program to set some of these bits. Now to do this, this change is one of the things that we want to actually change. So maybe if I change these steps by 5, you can see the difference that it makes. So because I want to do this, I need another variable now to say how much the steps increases by. So let's add another variable and call it by increase. So I've now got those three variables. I've got the number of degrees it will turn each time. I've got the number of steps, but to be honest, actually, because we've got this change bit, we're not likely to change the steps bit very much manually ourselves. We're likely to do this increase one instead to change the pattern. And then we've got the actual number of steps it moves each time. So let's ask the person before all this starts how many steps and how many steps to increase by each time and how many degrees to turn each time. Okay, so start the green flag. We're going to ask a question, which is in sensing. We're listening for that question, and let's put it at the very beginning. In fact, let's do it just after it's gone to the center. We're going to go how many steps should I increase by? Okay, so that will ask the question, and what we need to do is when the answer is given, we need to put that into that variable. So we're going to set that increase variable at this point once the answer has been given. So I'm going to go set. Now I've got mine still says degrees, so I need to make sure that that says increase. And the answer is back in those sensing bits. So where the ask bit was, just underneath, there's a little blue. It's the same shape as the variables, that kind of oval shape. So I can pop that in instead of the number. So I'm going to set the increase to the answer that was given. So the final thing I need to do is where that change steps by, and it was a number, my last change was set 5. But if I bring over this, it's not steps, I need the increase one there. So we've asked the question, the answer that the person gave got put into increase, and now that increase one is being used down here to say how much it's going to grow each time. So let's try that. Green flag. I'm going to say maybe 3 for now to see what that looks like. Hit the green, so hit the tick, and you can see I've got a pattern there. If I make that 15, so it's a bigger number, you can see it's a much wider pattern. So let's do the same thing now with how the turns to get those different patterns. So it's the same process. We're going to ask a question, and the question is going to be how many degrees shall I turn? We're going to again set the degrees variable to the answer that was given. So I'm going to go to variables and set, not change, set degrees. Now this time it has got degrees for me, which is great because that's the one I want. But if it's not the degrees, we'll make sure you change it. And then I'm going to go back to that blue one again and get the answer that was given and put that into degrees. So I've got the first ask was how many steps should I increase by? When the answer is given, it puts it into increase. Then I ask a different question, which is how many degrees should I turn? The answer to that gets put into degrees. Then I'm just going to scroll down this code a little bit, back into that repeat bit, and where it says turn, and last one I put in was 110 degrees. What we want to go in there is the number that's in that variable now. So once the answer's been given and it's been put in that variable, we want to use it here. So I'm going to go to variables and drag over that degrees and put that in there as well. So let's test that bit now. So I'm going to hit the green flag. It says how many steps should I increase by? I'm going to do 5. How many degrees shall I turn? I'm going to do 55, like number 5. The green flag, and you can see I get a pattern. Let's try and change that. So I'm going to do 5 increase again, but this time I'm going to make it 7. You can see it gives me a pattern. It's not a very good one, but it does give me a pattern. Let's try again. So let's do 5 steps again. But this time I'm going to do a big number. So I'm going to do maybe 145 degrees. See what happens. And you can see I get another pattern. So it's all these two numbers give you different results each time. Now that we've got those patterns being created, one thing I said earlier on was that I wasn't worried about the pen color, because what I want to do is actually create almost like a rainbow effect on the pen. So we're going to do that with, in the pen tools, you've got this change pen color by, and then a number as an option. And I'm going to bring that in now to this repeat until. Now, it doesn't really matter where it goes in this repeat until. If you put it at the beginning, it means you'll never see, or not never, but at the very beginning, it won't have this kind of pink color that we had, or whatever color you started with. So it'll change before that gets used. To be honest, it's not going to make much of a difference. So it changes by a number. I want this to be quite random. I want it to change so that the color keeps on changing all the time and it never repeats, and it's not kind of a fixed pattern. It's just like lots of random colors. So I'm going to pick a random number to put in there. So I went to those green operators. We've used it before. And the number I'm going to do is between 1, not 10, I'm going to do 100. Okay, so I'm going to click my green flag to test this now. I'm going to increase by 5 steps again, but this time I'm going to do this maybe 160 degrees and see what that does. Nice big number again. And look at that. So now I've got, each line is a different color. So every time it turns, it changes color, and you get these really funky patterns of different colors coming in, which is brilliant. It's exactly kind of what I wanted for now. So just to recap, we've got a way of asking the user for how many degrees to turn and what steps, and that changes the pattern. But we've also now got the colors changing each time. What I want to do here is I want to save this. I'm going to put a little bit on the end here and put choice on the end, because this is asking the user to choose the steps and the degrees to use. So I'm going to just hit share on that, and it means and then I'm going to if you're in one of my lessons, hit add to studio and find the pattern maker studio and add it to that. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my stuff. I'm going to click on pattern maker. I'm going to click on see inside, which brings me up this. But what I want to do is I want to save a copy of this. And the reason I want to save a copy is because that gives me the choice one, and this allows me now. So I'm going to do pattern maker and random, because we're going to create one now that when you hit the green flag, it creates a pattern, really pretty pattern, stops, then creates another one, and then creates another one, and creates another one. So it's not asking the user anymore. It's actually just keep on going through lots of different designs. So we're still on the same block of code. And what I want to do is, where we've got here this asking for the input and getting the answer, we're going to remove that, those two ask bits. So I'm going to remove that ask one, leave the set ones in place, and I'm going to remove that ask one. Now obviously we haven't got answers anymore either, so we can't put the answers in there, so I need to get rid of those two. So I've got rid of the two light blue ask steps, and I've taken out the answer for those steps from where it says set increase to and set degrees to. Because what we're going to do in here now is we're going to just pick a random number. So again, we've used this before, the green pick random. So I'm going to put 1 in the set increase to, and I'm going to put another one in the set degrees to. Now set degrees, I'm going to put up to 180 degrees. And the increase, I'm going to leave as 1 to 10, because the increase needs to be a small number, otherwise it very quickly gets too big and you actually don't see a pattern, you just maybe see one line. The degrees, we'll see that in a minute, we'll see what happens, and we might adjust some of these numbers here in a moment. So let's run that and see what happens. So hit the green flag. It hasn't asked me a question, but it's drawn a pattern. And you can see it created one with a degrees of 111 and an increase of 8. Let's hit the green again. So this one was 42 degrees, an increase of 6. Green flag again. This one was 6 degrees, so very small. And you can see the very small numbers just give us those curls that don't really do much. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to maybe say between 70 and 180, because I don't want any really small numbers. They don't look very good. So if I hit the green flag, okay, so 164 and 3. And then I get a different pattern, and then I get a different pattern, I get a different pattern, a different pattern, a different pattern. And that's looking really effective for me. And every time I hit the green flag, I'm getting a different pattern, which is great, but none of those patterns is just a curve that goes off the screen. So I'm really happy with that for now. Now that we've got it creating the patterns that we want, we're going to set it so that it keeps on clearing the screen, doing another pattern, and starting again. So basically, everything from this when the green flag is clicked is going to be repeated forever. So I'm going to hit, grab a forever block, and I'm going to bring all of that inside it. So this is the whole code is going to go in forever. And what you'll see now is if I hit my green flag, it'll draw a pattern, draw another one, and as soon as it gets to that edge where it's touching the edge of the screen, I like that, that's nice. It clears and goes back. What I want to do is actually I want to have a little bit of time just to appreciate and go, oh, that's a nice pattern. So before it goes back to the beginning up there, I need to put something, a weight in. So I'm going to go to events, oh sorry, not events, control, and I'm going to grab weight, and I'm going to wait maybe 5 seconds. So now when I hit the green flag, it draws a pattern, waits 5 seconds, it should in a second, start a new one. And what that means is actually as well, you can see the steps that it's used, degrees it's used. So if you want to use the choice one that you made earlier, because it's a really nice pattern, you can just type those numbers in as the options, the steps, and increase. Okay, so I'm going to stop on that. What I need to do at this point, again, is I need to save it and share it. So I'm going to go File, Save Now, and then I'm going to share this. And again, if you're doing one of my lessons, hit Add to Studio and choose the Pattern Maker Pupil Files Studio. And that's it. I really hope you enjoy using this. I just love the patterns it makes. It's just fascinating to see different patterns and the effect of just changing those two numbers can have on those patterns. So I hope you really enjoy it. I've really enjoyed it, and I really look forward to the next lesson. I'll see you again soon.